Good afternoon. My name is Ishita Arora. I am assistant professor from the BJMC department, and today we are going to discuss about radio. In radio, to be precise, we will be discussing its characteristics, role, and history. But before understanding anything else, let's talk about what radio actually is. When we talk about radio as a medium, we can say that radio is a broadcast medium and a source of mass communication and sound communication that uses radio waves for the transmission of music, news, sound, and shows. We can say that it has a number of components or elements which can include speech, sound effects, music, pause, etc. So that is what radio as a medium is. Next, we will be discussing what are the characteristics of radio. When we talk about the characteristics of radio, we can say that it is audio based, it is mobile, quick medium, accessible, interactive, cost effective, and has a wide range. Now we will be discussing each of these characteristics one by one. So, beginning with it being an audio based medium. So when we talk about radio being an audio-based medium, we can say that radio is completely audible. We cannot see any visuals on radio. We can only listen to different sounds, music, or people speaking through radio. So that is what makes it an audio-based medium. Next, we'll talk about it being a mobile or portable medium. When we talk about it being a mobile medium, we can say that we can carry any radio along and walk around. So it is portable. We can carry it around and walk around. So we can say that it is a mobile medium. Next, we can say that it is a quick medium. That means that there is immediacy with the content that we get through it. So we can quickly get information through our radio. So it is a quick medium. The information comes to us immediately. Next characteristic that we can talk about is that it is accessible. When it comes to accessibility, we can define it as it can be owned, it can be possessed by a number of people at the most remotest areas of the world also, because we see that many other sources of mass media cannot reach very remote or far locations, but radio is usually one medium that reaches even the farthest or even the remotest places of India or even the world. So we can say that it is an accessible medium. Next, we'll talk about interactive. So when we say that radio is an interactive medium, we can say that there are a lot of shows or programs on radio that allow us to interact, us as an audience, I mean, to interact with the people who are inside the radio studio or precisely the radio jockey. So there are many quizzes. There can be some question answer rounds or any fun games that are played on radio where we can connect with the RJ and talk to them directly. So that's what makes it an interactive medium. Next, we can say that it is a cost-effective medium. Well, how cost-effective? Radio usually does not require a lot of equipment. You just need a transistor, or nowadays, radio is easily available or accessible through our mobile phones as well. So that does not include a lot of cost. So it is comparatively cost effective or cheaper than any other medium. For example, if we talk about television, so a television would usually require a complete television set along with probably a modem, a set-top box, and that will require a lot of money to buy. So in comparison, radio does not include so much expenses. Next, we talk about it having a wide reach. So the next characteristic is that radio has a wide reach. This means that radio usually reaches a lot of people. As I also discussed in the accessibility characteristic of radio, that radio reaches even the farthest places, the most remotest places. So it reaches maximum people, so it has a wide geographical reach. So where other things, other sources of mass media are not easily available or don't reach easily, radio in comparison has a wide reach in those areas as well. Now, next we will talk about the limitations. We know that we just discussed the characteristics of radio, and we can also say that these were also the advantages of radio. But there are also some limitations of radio as a medium. So we'll discuss them one by one. So starting with the first point, when we say that radio is not a visual medium, we can say that radio is only audible, we all know that. But what happens is that when as an audience we view something, we see something, we usually require visuals to understand it better or to retain it for a longer time. It's not always possible for us to remember something that is only audible. So what happens is that due to lack of visuals, radio might not be interesting for a lot of audience. So that becomes a limitation for it. Second limitation of radio is that there is a lot of rise of other media that has shifted people's interest towards them. For example, if you talk about youth, right now, people are more interested in using social media. They're more interested in using new media in comparison to radio when it comes to getting information or using it for entertainment. So, be it social media or television, people are more interested in, getting all these information and education or entertainment from the new media that is available in the market. Third limitation when we talk about is inconsistent reception. We have a lot of times seen that when we're traveling, usually, probably in some remote areas, sometimes or on any highways or any mountainous regions, what happens is that the reception of the radio broadcast is sometimes disrupted. This is because sometimes what happens in some areas where there is a lack of signal or connection, there is not complete or properly, there is no reception in those areas. So at those places, we cannot easily listen to radio. So that's what makes it another limitation of radio. Now, talking about the last limitation of radio is that there is, I talked about characteristics saying that it is an interactive medium, but at the same time, it has limited interactivity. Because when we talk about any new media or any digital media or social media in today's times, it is easy to interact through it. For example, if somebody is posting a picture on social media and somebody has to comment on it, so they can there and then comment on it, and there can be a conversation on social media at the same time. But when it comes to radio, it is not the case with radio as well. Because what happens is interaction is only possible on radio when telephone lines are actually opened by the radio itself. Otherwise, people cannot usually, interact with the RJs easily. Now, since we have completed the characteristics and limitations of radio, we will discuss about the role of radio in society. Radio plays a very important role in society, especially in India. If we talk precisely about our country, then it plays a very, very important role in our society. So, the following are certain points which describe the role of radio. First, information, then there is education, entertainment, community building, agricultural and rural development, and government programs and policies or schemes. So, when I begin with information, we all know since the inception of radio, radio has been widely used for spreading information. All India Radio, when it began, its most important, and the main program of broadcast was related to news bulletins only. So it played a very important and major role in providing information to the people around, whether be it through news or through cricket commentaries or anything. Radio played a major role in providing knowledge or information to the people. The next important point about the role of radio in society is education. Now, when it comes to education, there are a number of programs, channels that are being started by All India Radio that provide proper education for children. And one example is the Gyan Vani. Gyan Vani channel provides information or education to the children. Next, when we talk about entertainment, we all know in today's times, radio is majorly used for entertainment, be it private radio stations or be it government radio stations. Both play widely popular Bollywood or Hindi music or even English music or in regional languages. They play music, and music comprises the most major part of any radio station these days. And apart from music, there are a number of talks that happen, discussions that happen, quizzes, fun games that happen on radio that play a very big part in entertaining the people. Next, we talk about community building. Community building. When we talk about role of radio as building community building. So we can say that radio provides a lot of information to people, and it brings close people belonging to the same community, and it provides a platform for them to come and speak about their problems. So community building and community radio actually plays a very important role in the society. Next, we'll talk about agricultural and rural development. Uh, Now, when it comes to agricultural and rural development, it is very important for the government to spread correct information to the farmers or people who are involved in agriculture. So there are a number of shows that are run by All India Radio, keeping in mind the farmers as the target audience, and these are special audience programs that are completely designed only for the farmers or the people who are involved in agriculture. So such programs majorly focus on everything related to farming, be it the use of fertilizers, be it irrigation, be it information about different seeds, everything that is related to agriculture and rural development. So one example of such a show is Kisan Mani, that is broadcasted by All India Radio itself. Next, we talk about government programs and schemes. Now, when we talk about government programs and schemes, we mean that radio plays a very important role in spreading information and awareness about government programs, schemes, and policies. This is not only through news but also through public service advertisements. So there were so many advertisements back in the day that were broadcasted on All India Radio's different radio stations, and these were majorly, focused either on Mission Indradhanush, or they were related to polio and, providing the proper dose to children for polio, immunization, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. So it's important for the government to reach out to the people to create awareness about these government programs and schemes. And for that, radio plays a very, very important role in the society. So these were all the points that we focused on about the role of radio in society. Now next we'll discuss about the history of radio in the world. When we talk about history of radio in the world, we begin with a lot of discoveries that were done back in the day. So there were so many discoveries that were done by different people since the very inception of time, and it all began in the 1860 with James Maxwell discovering the radio waves. So after him, in 1880s, it was Henrik Hertz who found that electricity can be transmitted through electromagnetic waves. After his discovery, there were a lot of other discoveries that kept taking place. And then in 1895, Guglielmo Marconi finally, transmitted radio signal at a short distance, and the first radio communication system was developed by him. So he played a very major role in the history of radio in the world. After his discovery in 1900, Reginald Fissenden, he was the person who did the first voice transmission, and he sort of laid an inception of radio broadcasting. Now, after that, while these discoveries were done, after that, radio played a very important role in world history at the time of World War One. This was during 1914 to 1918. Now, at this time, wireless telegraphy took a turn towards radio broadcasting, and this happened majorly because of industrialization as well as military requirements that were, a necessity at the time of World War One. After that, radio took a more commercial and social turn. So now we were discussing about whatever was happening in Europe. Now we will discuss about what was happening in USA. So in 1915, some earliest radio transmissions were made by universities in the USA, and this was majorly to disseminate news. This was majorly to give out news by the universities. So when this was done, so later in 1920s, the first radio stations had emerged in USA itself, and these were majorly at the places like Chicago, New York, and Pittsburgh. So these three places were the first ones to get radio stations in USA. Now, after that, since these developments were happening in USA, there was also a major development that happened in UK in 1920, and this was that British Broadcasting Corporation was founded in the 1920s, which we call as BBC in the current times. Now, after the establishment of BBC in 1920, what happened next in USA was that 45 radio stations had emerged across USA by mid 1923. So, USA saw a rise of 45 radio stations across USA. And then what happened was that some of these 45 radio stations came together, and in 1926 they decided to form a company called the National Broadcasting Company. Now, this was also followed by a formation of the Columbia Broadcasting System in 1927. So, some of the 45 radio stations that had emerged during 1923 decided to come together to form National Broadcasting Company in 1926, and the remaining radio stations out of these 45 radio stations came together to form the Columbia Broadcasting System, or the CBS, in 1927. Now, apart from this, radio was also being continuously used by colonial powers to exert influence in their colonies, such as Asia and Africa, and it played a major role in spreading their propaganda across their colonies. When it comes to propaganda, radio was also very famously used by the Nazis in Germany from 1939 to 45, that is during the World War II. So, radio was used for Nazi propaganda during World War II to spread their ideas, their ideologies, their thinkings around the world and around people, so that they could exert their influence and prove that they were superior of all. So this is how, radio developed and evolved through many years. So, in this presentation or discussion today, we looked at radio. We looked at what radio is. We focused on its characteristics. Then we talked about then we talked about its limitations, its role in the society, and after that, ultimately, we touched upon its evolution or history around the world.